Hi everyone and welcome to the channel of Young Pilgrims. My name is Sebastian and today we will talk about a very important topic for today's believers. Intention is not what counts. And why this issue? Well, today the believer has fallen into a state where he thinks that the most important thing in his pilgrimage is what he feels and what he believes. He reads the scriptures, but he only sees it as a historical document, and from it he only takes those parts that make him feel good. He put the commandments aside because he thinks they are abolished. He doesn't study books like Leviticus or Numbers because he considers them obsolete and boring. And he deduces that just by believing what his religious leader tells him, he will save his soul. But is this true? Of course not. Even though we know that it's not by works that we acquire salvation, as Ephesians chapter 2 from the verse 8 to 9 says, but by Yeshua's act of sacrifice, we know that we can lose the promise of future salvation if we deliberately sin, as Hebrews chapter 10 from the verse 26 to 31 says. And deliberate sin is not only doing bad acts, but also not doing good acts, as James chapter 4 verse 17 says. And we can read it in the letter of James for chapter 4 verse 17. We read this: if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Sadly, today the believer lives deceived by the doctrines taught in religious systems, where they are corrupted with beautiful words and sensation by worship music of the so-called praise and or adoration, making them believe that faith is based on emotions, when we know that faith without works is death, as also the letter of James chapter 2 from the verse 14 to 17 says. And we can also read this part. We read in the verse 14, what good is my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has not deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is in it? In the same way, faith by itself, if is not accompanied by action, is death. But then, returning to the topic, but then what is living faith like? Well, a living faith is a faith accompanied by works, but not just any works, but those that come in the scriptures, commandments, and teachings. We know that that faith is the certainty of things hoped for, hoping for, the evidence of conviction of things not seen, as Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 says. But what does the true believer expect? Well, we already saw that not what the religious system said with the doctrines, but what the scripture says, which are the commandments of the Torah, what the prophets teach, and what Yeshua and his disciples or emissaries interpret. On the other hand, the conviction of what is not seen is that prophecy that the believer doesn't know 100%, but that by fulfilling the commandments, he waits because he trusts the eternal and obeys him. With this, we can see that the intention that counts is one that is not only felt, but is executed, because it is useless to love the eternal in an emotional way if it's not shown with obedience and consecration. And it is also useless to love one's neighbor or oneself, but is not confirming. And it is useless to love one's neighbor as oneself, but is not confirmed with justice, help, and humility to him. Many believers today think that singing to the eternal or worship Him is the only thing is the only thing they have to do, but sharing Him goes much further. To be true believers, we must not only to do it with our heart, but with our mind and our will. And how is this? Well, we can read this in Deuteronomy 6. It is by putting His words, His commandments in our heart, talking about emotions, in our mind, talking about reasoning, that we do it with conviction, and in our hand, talking about our actions. So, in conclusion, the faith of the true believer is not about intention, but about acts that follow the example of those men who recognize themselves from doing good in the Bible, and above all, our great example, which is Yeshua, who was the most obedient and taught us how to keep the commandments. So let's move away from the unconditional love doctrine of the religious systems and begin to correspond to the Father's love with our obedience. So, well, that is all for this occasion. Please help us get this video for more people by sharing or also liking. And also, if you have any comments, doubts, you can write it here down in the comment section. We'll see you in the next time. Blessings.